Today on Nile TV International and this special edition. Moving on to Ambassador Medhat Meligy, the former Assistant Foreign Minister and the member of the Egyptian Council for Foreign Affairs. Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador, for being with us tonight on Nile TV International and this special coverage. Ambassador Medhat Meligy.
Yes, do you hear me, sir?
Yes, I can hear you now. Thank you very much for being with us tonight. But first of all, how would you comment on the statements of just not the American Vice President J.D. Vance, but the American President himself, Donald Trump? He stated that he does not care about the outcome of the negotiations between the United States and Israel and Iran that took place in Pakistan, or more specifically between the Iranian and the American delegations in Islamabad, because he thinks that he had already come out ahead during that war, and that the U.S. had already won after the 40-day war between the United States, Israel and Iran in the Middle East. How would you comment on those statements?
Well, actually, when it comes to that the United States have won, I think, military speaking, we can say that President Trump is not far from being right. I mean, militarily speaking, I think the outcome of the war shows that there is a hard beat on the Iranians, and that what we are going to discover along the journey that will come along is that the infrastructure of Iran has been badly damaged, and that whether we are talking about its civilian installation or about its nuclear installation or about even its military installation. So all of them have received a big hit. Having said that, I think that when it comes to the diplomatic battle, which is not less important than the military one, I think Iran here has, relatively speaking, of course, a better result over the American. That's why the Americans were the one who wanted the negotiations and wanted to reach a certain outcome to stop the war. But I think if we come to the outcome of the negotiation itself, I think that what happened is, I mean, the negotiations have failed simply because they were built on incompatible expectations.
Yes.
I mean, Washington came with a strategy of maximum pressure, while Tehran came with a strategy of a negotiation resistance. And neither side was willing to make the necessarily concession or compromise. So if we are going to talk about the negotiations and how they fell and why Mr. Trump said what he said,
yes,
I think because he has already planned what we can call a plan B, since he knew that from the beginning. I think the United States came with a mentality of that Iran has to submit to the American will, which actually Iran came with an open mind to negotiations, but there were not negotiations. That's why we failed after only 21 hours. And Vice President
J.D. Vance.
J.D. Vance, yes, left directly afterwards. I mean, which means that he came with a certain mentality. Either you submit to what we said, or we're leaving. There is nothing to negotiate about. And I think this is a very important thing to point out here, that the Americans did not come with a mentality ready to give and take, as any negotiation should take place. Actually, they came with a mentality of dictating, as the victorious party who came out victorious in this war, and they have to dictate on the Iranian what they have to do and how they have to do it.
Yes, Ambassador Medhat Meligy, you've mentioned that those incompatible expectations from both parties, from the United States and Iran, going into the negotiations have led to the failure of those negotiations, as we have seen for today. So there is a plan B, according to your statements. What is plan B for both sides, for Iran and for the United States after the failure of those negotiations? Will there be another round of negotiations and consultations in Pakistan in the near future, in your opinion?
I don't think so, because Iran is not ready to submit yet. And this is what the Americans want to hear, is that Iran has totally failed, and that it has to accept the conditions of the Americans, whether we are talking about their nuclear program or about their missile program or the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz or any other condition that the Americans are going to put. That's why when we started the negotiation, it was one of the weirdest negotiations that could ever take place. I mean, the Americans came with their 15-point plan, while the Iranian came with their 10-point plan, and both of us think that they came based on their victory. And this is true to some extent, because the American won militarily while the Iranian won politically. And that's why each side is considering himself that they won the war, and now they're coming to collect the fruits of this winning. And unfortunately, because of those unexpected or those unrealistic expectations, that's why the negotiation didn't take much to fail. Of course, since both of them are coming with different spirits, so that's what we should expect. And that's why I don't think that they will resume anytime soon. I think that the plan B of the Americans now is going to be to try to strangle Iran economically, and also we should not rule out the possibility of strikes, especially that the air defense of Iran is very weak and they cannot stop the bombardment on the Iranian cities. And I think that the Iranians from their side are waiting for the first step from the Americans before they can take a step. But they will not be the first one who would draw the first bullet, as we say.
Before departing from Pakistan, the American Vice President J.D. Vance, he stated that he had given the Iranian officials the best and final offer that he could give to Iran, and that he would be giving them a bit of time to be thinking about it. How do you see the response, the anticipated response from the Iranian officials regarding this final offer?
I think that the Iranians were not expecting that the fail of the negotiation would be so quickly, and that shows exactly what I was talking about. That the Americans came with a certain mentality that the Iranian will submit now, and they will say, okay, what are your conditions? We accept them, and this did not happen, and that's why Vice President J.D. Vance was in a state of shock, because he thought that it's going to be an easy negotiation, while the Iranian came to negotiate and give some and take some, as any normal negotiation was supposed to take place. And I think that the United States is saying what J.D. Vance said, simply to clear their conscience in front of the international community, that they gave Iran the chance, and now Iran has to bear the consequences of not obeying the American or not accepting the American conditions. And this is what will happen, which was what we are going to see next. Because I believe that President Trump is extremely angry with the Iranian regime, and you can read it in his tweets that he published on his Truth social media,
platform,
and it's quite clear that he's totally, for the second time, very nervous, as we've seen the first time when he used inappropriate language speaking to another state, and once again he is saying that he has given them the chance, and now he is going to do whatever he wants because they refuse to accept the American conditions.
Does this mean we could be expecting another escalation after the end of the 2-week ceasefire?
Well, I don't know. I mean, what exactly can we expect by escalation? There will definitely be escalation.
Yes.
But is it going to be a military one or not? This is what we are going to see, because the plan, as far as we heard, is to strangle Iran economically, and by depriving them from using the Strait of Hormuz as a weapon. I think that we all heard, for instance, the ex-president, the former president of the Russian Federation, Mr. Medvedev, when he said that the Iranians used their nuclear weapon and its name is Strait of Hormuz. And this shows that this Strait of Hormuz became one of the strongest negotiation points of Iran. And the United States want to deprive them from using this by using other means to transfer the petrol from the Gulf area. As we all know, 20% of the petrol flow through the Strait of Hormuz, and this is what the United States wants to do by depriving them from using this as a weapon. But of course, we cannot totally rule out the possibility of some surgical precision strikes on important facilities, whether civilians or military facilities of the Iranians.
And how do you see the role of Israel during the war for the past 40 or 45 days and during the negotiations that took place in Pakistan? Because we have seen another war between Israel and Hezbollah in the south of Lebanon and reaching Beirut as well.
Well, Israel is the unseen player and the most important player in all what took place. Let's not forget that the first strike came from Israel, as we all heard it, the preventive act of war against Iran from the beginning. And now, of course, we also know about the, let's say, different or the diversion point of view between Israel and the United States, because Israel wants to go all the way, whether with Iran or with Lebanon. And I'm not optimistic very much when it comes to Lebanon, because Lebanon does not really have what it takes to defend itself. And I believe that Israel's main goal now, after losing, between brackets, the war with Iran, is going to be to take as much land as it could from Lebanon to, as it say, and it will always continue to say, secure its northern border. This is going to be the trophy that Mr. Netanyahu can take to the Israeli public, so that he can justify what he has done, is to try to take more Lebanese land to add it to what he already took, simply just to secure, as he can call, the northern borders of Israel. And on the other side, when it comes to Iran, I think that Israel understands that a total victory over Iran is not in the near future. It cannot definitely do it without the United States. And the American president now is more reluctant to take severe steps, militarily speaking, knowing that he already lost his own public opinion, who do not support this war internally, I mean in the United States at first, and second, that he has his eyes on the coming elections, that if he loses, he might lose the control that he has over the Senate and over the Congress, which could mean a big political defeat for him and his political future.
Yes, one important statement that was released by the American Vice President as well for the past few hours was that the main or the core goal of the American President Donald Trump through the negotiations and through the war was for Iran to be abandoning the idea of nuclear weapons, the nuclear projects, the nuclear warheads and the atomic bombs, according to his statements, that they were trying to reach in the near future, because this is the main goal from the war. Do you think that this will be accepted by Iran, on the other hand, to be abandoning such a project?
I think we have to go back here to the basics. And the basics says that Iran is a country that is a signatory of the Treaty of Non-Proliferation.
Yes.
While Israel, for instance, is not. And it does not accept the inspectors to check any of its nuclear facilities. So Iran, according to the international law, is abiding by the rules of the international law. But when it comes to nuclear warheads or nuclear weapons. Iran have always stated that it does not want to have any nuclear weapons, but it has the right to have nuclear capabilities like any other country who is seeking to use nuclear capabilities for peaceful means. The idea here is that the main player who should be judging all of that is supposed to be the Agency of Nuclear Energy,
Yes.
of atomic energy, which is not playing the role that it should be playing. It's not the United States to judge if Iran is breaking the law or not. It's up to the Atomic Energy Agency to decide that, and then it should ask the international community to take measures against Iran because Iran is not obeying. And until this day, I did not hear any warrant issued against Iran from the agency. And I think this is the international body that is supposed to judge the whole situation and not the United States.
And finally, Mr. Ambassador, how did you see the efforts of Egypt in general for the past 2 months, to say the least, between the efforts of His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and Foreign Minister Dr. Badr Abdulati to be de-escalating the situation or the war in the Middle East and in the region? And more specifically for today, we have seen phone calls being conducted between Foreign Minister Abdulati and his counterpart from Pakistan, Muhammad Ishaq Qadar, and the American Special Representative or Envoy to the Middle East, Steve Witkoff, to be discussing the situation after the failure of the negotiations.
Well, Egypt is concerned and has always been concerned about the future of the region. Egypt, as one of the most important players in the region, is more concerned globally about the situation, strategically, about how could this affect the delicate situation in the Middle East. We see what is going on in Lebanon, before that in Palestine, and now with Iran and the Gulf countries. So we are more concerned about a certain strategic vision of the area. That's why we are conducting our peaceful means and our capacity and our, as we call it, our strategic balance that we have with all the parties involved. I mean, we have relations with Iran, we have relations with the United States and even Israel, and of course the Gulf states. So what Egypt wants is to secure the region and to make sure that no escalation can engulf the whole region of the Middle East in a war that only God knows to which extent it can affect all the countries, especially that we know that economically, not just the Middle East, but the whole world is going to be affected by the raise of the price of the petrol and so on, and energy and everything related to those elements. So this is the first point. The second point, that until the last moment Egypt was involved. As you know, there was, beside the direct negotiations between the Americans and the Iranians, there was another round of negotiations between Egypt and Saudi Arabia and Pakistan and I'm sorry, there is a fourth country.
Turkey?
And Turkey, exactly. And all of them were discussing in parallel with the negotiations between the United States and Iran to try to provide solution to both parties. As we said, I believe that that the American Vice President came with a certain mentality that he is coming to dictate and to order the Iranian to do this and this and this and this, which is not exactly the same mentality with which the Iranian came with.
Yes, Mr. Ambassador Medhat Al-Meligy, the former Assistant Foreign Minister and the member of the Egyptian Council for Foreign Affairs, thank you very much for being with us tonight on this special coverage on Nile TV International.